Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Coach Craig Sports. Today's Tuesday, so this will be the waiver wire episode for Week 8. We're going into Week 8. It's pretty much halfway through the year. It's kind of going by real quick. Hopefully your teams are all doing well. If they're not, I'm going to talk a little bit about waivers for this week. It is not a very good waiver wire week by any means. Probably the worst one so far this season. But we're going to go over a couple players that could be a benefit to your teams if you need some help. Otherwise, some guys to potentially stash for the future. So we'll start off with the quarterback position. Got Jameis Winston. He was 19 out of 35 last night, 222 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. Chipped in with 40 yards rushing too, which is kind of nice. He had 18.88 fantasy points in Week 7. Rostered in 27% of ESPN leagues, 50% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against Tampa Bay, who has not been the best at stepping in the past this year, and it is a revenge game. What better game would Jameis Winston want to come out and ball out than a revenge game against Tampa Bay? So definitely a streamable quarterback this week. Probably somebody worth spending like 1 to 2% of your fab budget. Probably not a long-term answer, but on a week like this, a good stream quarterback, if you need one, you could do a lot worse than Jameis Winston. Then our other quarterback that we do have is Carson Wentz. 17 out of 26 in the rain in San Francisco. 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He did have that little pass forward that got ruled a fumble, so it actually ended up being a fumble loss. 23 rushing yards, 1 touchdown, 24.3 points in Week 7. Rostered in 22% of ESPN leagues, 38% of Yahoo leagues. Pretty good chance that he's out there. Goes against Tennessee, who has been terrible against the pass so far this season. I know they really got to Patrick Mahomes and caused some problems that way, but that is not typically the norm. So decent streaming option once again this week with Carson Wentz, probably 1 to 2% of your fab budget type of guy. Then we'll get moved over to running back, and it's not pretty. The biggest ones we got to talk about is the Philadelphia running backs because Miles Sanders is out here at his ankle. He's week to week at this point in time. So the most popular name here is going to be Kenneth Gainwell. Played 51% of snaps this past week, 5 carries, 20 yards. He had 8 targets for 4 receptions for 41 yards. That's the good part. 14.1 points in Week 7. Rostered in 26% of ESPN leagues, yet 22% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against the Detroit Lions in Week 8, which is a great matchup for running backs. So do I think Kenneth Gainwell will be a viable running back this week? Yes, because he's playing against the Lions. Do I think he's going to split the workload with Boston Scott? Also, yes. And it's probably going to be closer to 50-50, 45-55, maybe in Gainwell's favor, but he's not a guy I'm going to go out of my way and spend 30% of my fab budget on like some people are going to tell you to do. He's probably a guy I'd be willing to spend like upwards of 10%. Just depends if you need a running back or not. If you need a running back, maybe you hit 15%. Kind of like that Damian Williams a couple weeks ago, but he is definitely a guy to look at. And with the waiver wire being as bad as it is this week, he's probably going to be one of the top guys of the waiver wire for the week. And then we're going to go to his running mate with Boston Scott. Played 33% of snaps this past game. 7 carries, 24 yards, 2 targets, 1 reception, 5 yards, 9.9 points in Week 7. Only rostered in about 2% of leagues on both ESPN and Yahoo. Same great matchup against the Detroit Lions. I think this could actually be a game script that favors him. Most people are probably not going to see it that way. You probably only need to spend upwards of 5% on Boston Scott if you need a running back. So if you're looking for a guy that you can get a little bit cheaper, maybe offer similar upside, maybe it's Boston Scott over Kenneth Gainwell. But at this point in time, it's too early to tell. But I think it's going to be a split backfield. Then we move over to the wide receiver position for this week. So probably the top name that's going to pop up a lot is Allen Lazard. Devontae Adams is on the COVID list now. He needs 2 negative tests before Thursday night, 24 hours apart, in order to play in this game. So there's probably a 95% chance that he's not playing in this game at this point in time as of this recording. So Lazard played 91% of snaps last week, 6 targets, 5 receptions, 60 yards, and 1 touchdown. You've seen Aaron Rodgers looking his way just a little bit more the last couple weeks or so. So definitely a benefit there. If there's no Devontae Adams, he's probably going to be the top wide receiver on this team. 17 points in Week 7. Roster in 5% of ESPN leagues, 9% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against the Arizona Cardinals in Week 8. Not the best matchup in the world, but it still could be worse as well. He's probably, a 1-week play. So if you really need a wide receiver, you can spend like 5% of your fab budget. If you don't, I'd probably be closer to 3% of your fab budget. It's also important to keep in mind MVS, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, could be back for this game. Supposedly he's kind of 50-50 at this point. He's been on the IR with the hamstring injury. Even if he's back, I don't expect him to make a major impact. And the biggest thing with him is getting deep over the top, that speed game, and it coming off a hamstring injury. He's probably not going to be quite as good at that, so he's not really somebody I'm interested in this week. But we'll talk about another Packers wide receiver, and that's Randall Cobb. Played 62% of snaps this past week. 4 targets, 3 receptions, 22 yards, 5.2 points in week 7. The biggest thing with him is we know Aaron Rodgers trusts him. If he's on the field a little bit more, if he's getting more targets, he's a guy that's a viable wide receiver 3 flex play this week. He is rostered in 14% of ESPN leagues, 9% of Yahoo leagues. Good chance that he's out there as well. Same matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. Going in the slot, probably against Byron Murphy most of the time, who's arguably their best corner at this point in time. So not the greatest matchup in the world, but still a guy, Aaron Rodgers trusts. If he gets that touchdown, he's probably going to help your lineup out overall. So probably a guy that I'd spend maybe 2 to 3% of my fab budget on, just depending if I needed a receiver. And he's definitely a guy that's a little bit better in PPR leagues. Then we move over to Darius Slayton, and he really benefited from all these other wide receivers missing for the New York Giants. If that happens once again, going to be a pretty good day for him. Played 61% of snaps coming back off his own injury. 9 targets, 5 receptions, 63 yards, 11.3 points in week 7. Rostered in 11% ESPN leagues, 15% of Yahoo leagues. Has a great matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs in week 8. If he's the only guy out there, he's definitely attractive. But in terms of waiver wires for this week, probably you just have to spend like 1% of your fab budget to get him. He has a lot of upside if, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, Kenny Galladay are all missing once again. Even if 2 of those 3 are missing, he still may be a viable flex play. We'll just have to see at this point in time, but he's probably a guy you're going to get for like $1. Maybe you can even get after the waiver wire runs. Then we got Michael Gallup, who's been on IR. He's rostered in about 50% of ESPN leagues, 41% of Yahoo leagues, so kind of 50-50 chance if he's out there at this point in time. The Cowboys play against the Vikings in week 8, so Michael Gallup is designated to return to practice, but not activated off the IR at this point in time. He may not play this week, so this is probably more of a long-term stash, but a guy that you can spend 3 to 5% of your fab budget on because he could offer some long-term value as well. If he does end up playing this week, I'm probably not playing him unless I have no better option at that point in time. But when we get closer to Sunday, when I do the starts and sits on Saturday, we'll see what the situation looks like at that point in time. And then we'll talk about Rashod Bateman once again. I know everybody loves him quite a bit, but he played 63% of snaps this past week. 6 targets, 3 receptions, 80 yards. So the 80 yards is kind of the nice part there. It wasn't too much else otherwise, so one big play kind of helped him out. 11 points in week 7. He's rostered in 19% of ESPN leagues, 32% of Yahoo leagues. Still a little bit low considering what everybody in the consensus seems to feel about this guy. But he has a bye this week. He will not help your team out, but if you want to spend a little bit of fab on him, 1, 2, 3% of your fab budget for a long-term play, maybe has some upside down in the future, he could be a guy that you're looking at once again. Sammy Watkins has missed the previous 2 weeks. They have that bye, so now he's 3 weeks off. Maybe he'll be back from the injury in week 9, though. So just keep that in mind when you're going after Rashod Bateman. And then last but not least at the wide receiver position is Van Jefferson. He actually played 94% of snaps this last week, which is insane. So they played 3 wide receiver sets, a ton. And that was against the Detroit Lions in a game that they should win pretty easily. Deshaun Jackson, most notably, was on the field like 6% of the time. So it seems like we're seeing that transition for Van Jefferson making his way into that number 3 wide receiver clear cut at this point in time. Deshaun Jackson's just going to be out there every once in a while, a couple deep shots a game, something like that, which is kind of what I expected starting off the year. But Jefferson had 7 targets, 4 receptions, 43 yards, 1 touchdown, which I did call ahead of time. And he had 14.3 points in week 7. Roster in 7% of ESPN leagues, 9% of Yahoo leagues. Goes against the Houston Texans, my favorite team, in week 8. Should be another favorable matchup for him. So, if you're real desperate as for wide receiver 3, flex play, Van Jefferson could be a guy that you're looking at this week. Probably a guy that you only need to spend 1 to 2% of your fab budget on, but could offer a little bit of long-term upside as a weekly flex play as well. Then we'll move over to the tight end position, and the most notable one on this list I'm going to go with is Evan Engram. Played 61% of snaps this past week, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 44 yards, 10.4 points in week 7. Rostered in 23% of ESPN leagues, 31% of Yahoo leagues. Pretty good chance that he's still out there, which is kind of weird. And it's kind of weird that I'm advocating for Evan Engram so much this year because I have not been a big fan of him for a long time. Drops, injury history, all that. But the Giants are banged up once again. So going back to like what I was talking about with Darius Slayton, if some of these other guys are out, he's definitely going to be in play. And the Chiefs have been terrible against tight ends this year, so definitely could be a very good matchup for him as well. But a guy that you probably want to stream this week, maybe 2 to 3% of your fab budget on if you really need a tight end. I will mention Robert Tonyan as well. He's already rostered in like 60% of ESPN leagues though. But if Devontae Adams is out, he's definitely a guy that's going to get a big uptick in targets probably too as well. So definitely keep an eye out on him if he's out there in your leagues. And then last but not least, we got Tommy Sweeney. And this one, it's kind of bittersweet, honestly. Dawson Knox was doing pretty well so far this season. I kind of thought it was a little bit of an outlier, but maybe I was wrong on that one. We'll just have to see what as the season goes along. But he's got a fracture in his hand now, so he's highly unlikely to play this week. I don't think they've actually ruled him out, but Tommy Sweeney's the backup. Rostered in 1% of ESPN leagues, 0% of Yahoo leagues, so he's available pretty much everywhere. Goes against the Miami Dolphins, who have not been good against tight ends this year in Week 8. Yes, Tommy Sweeney's probably not super talented. Maybe he doesn't even get that touchdown once again, but if you get like 4 catches for 40 yards out of him, you could probably do a lot worse if you have a good tight end. If you have like a Darren Waller on bye this week, definitely somebody you can consider. You know, he's a guy that I'd probably try to get after waivers run or just only spend like 1% of my fab budget on. Then we move over to the defenses to consider streaming for this week. First off, we got the Cincinnati Bengals. They're rostered in 23% of ESPN leagues, 21% of Yahoo leagues. They go against the New York Jets team, and this is a New York Jets team that's going to be without Zach Wilson. He strained his PCL, so he's going to be out for a couple weeks. So you're either looking at one of 3 options at quarterback for the Jets. Mikey White is making his first career start. Josh Johnson, career journeyman backup coming off the practice squad. Or Joe Flacco that they just traded for yesterday. So either way, it's probably going to be a good game for the Cincinnati Bengals overall. Then we have the Atlanta Falcons once again going against Sam Darnold, who looked terrible last week. I know last week I put up the Giants and the Falcons. Obviously, the Giants were the better team. The Falcons were not. Part of that was because of Sam Darnold. Shout out to my buddy Dan Brown, as we kind of had like a little talk back and forth, and he preferred the Giants to the Falcons. He is a Falcons fan, though, too, so he's seen the good and the bad with their defense over the past few years, so that could have influenced his decision just a little bit, but he was definitely right last week, so definitely a shout out to him once again. But I do have the Falcons in here again this week because they are going against Sam Darnold, who has not looked like the same quarterback in recent games. The Falcons are rostered 19% of ESPN leagues, 7% of Yahoo leagues. So just another chance to a defense that you can stream once again. Probably not spending more than 1% of your fab budget on them. For the Bengals, I'd spend maybe upwards of 3% if you need to. Then last but not least, we got the Philadelphia Eagles going against the Detroit Lions. Roster in 4% of ESPN leagues, 6% of Yahoo leagues. Pretty good chance that they're out there too as well. Probably a 1 to 2% of your fab budget type of bid. Detroit has not been very good this year outside DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson on offense. So this Eagles team could have their way with them. It's also notable that Frank Ragnow, the Pro Bowl center, is on IR. Taylor Decker's been on IR all year, so that Detroit Lions offensive line that we thought was going to be a strength entering the year has not been that. And the Eagles are the team that creates the most interior pressure. And going against a backup center in Evan Brown, it's going to be a very nice game for Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. I'll tell you that. But with that being said, that's all I have for the waiver wire video for week 8. Hopefully you all enjoyed. And once again, all of my picks on here are guys that are rostered in less than 50% of leagues in both ESPN and Yahoo. So there may be guys available in your leagues that are not on my list because of one of those 2 criterias. If you have any questions when it comes to waivers, feel free to leave them down in the comments below and I will answer them as quickly as possible. But with that being said, if you are new to my channel, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. It helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your fantasy football teams, helping you with DFS, whether it's NFL or NBA, talking about all the different NFL news, some injuries in play, especially when it comes to the starts and sits video. And then with that being said, if you are a new or current subscriber yet to do so, also hit that notification bell down below. It's going to let you know every single time I post up a new video. And with that being said, tomorrow is Wednesday, so that will be the starts and sits for the Thursday night football matchup for this week, and that's going to be between the Green Bay Packers and the Arizona Cardinals. That should be a very good game as well. We'll see if Devontae Adams is playing or not. Otherwise, some of these waiver wire pickups, like I already mentioned, are going to be pretty good this week. But with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. Hopefully you all enjoyed. And then last but not least, special little shout out to each and every one of you watching today's video. I truly do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It definitely means a lot to me, and I hope each and every one of you has a great rest of your day.